It's just frustrating.
Hello.
Hi, Booktube.
Can everybody hear us? We're just waiting on Steve.
Yeah.
So we're showing 0 people in here.
Because nobody likes us.
You were showing 4 or 5.
Yeah. I think your phone just doesn't like us. I think that's all there is to it.
I usually give her phone the business.
I think your phone just doesn't like us. I think that's all there is to it.
You said you had it muted.
Well, when I'm playing a video, it's when I'm playing a video, it still won't play.
Yeah, that's right, Donoghue. That's how some people pronounce his name. I like that. Pretty cool. Here's Link. He's saying hi. Yeah. We're just waiting on Steve. He should be here any second.
He's working on being fashionably late.
Yep.
Because he's such a big internet influencer now.
Big sexy internet influencer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so there's like 6 people in here. Yeah. They're all waiting for the big guns to show up. They've got their eyes on the prize.
Oh, there's Steve.
There he is. He's just
don't invite. There you go.
Oh,
up by now.
Stevie's right here.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Link doesn't seem to be able to see screens very well. So
well, in order to see screens very well, he'd have to be awake, and he's not often awake.
there is that.
Yeah, the thing about the thing about Link is the thing about Link is Steve. He when he gets his ganders up, he can be as active as any dog I've ever seen. Just he runs like a little puppy for about 2 or 3 hours a day, and then he's down most of the rest of the time. But he is almost 12 years old. He will be 12 years old this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And Boston's are not the longest lived breeds, but God, we love them. Schnauzers have been known to live like 20 years.
Schnauzers live a long time. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we hope so.
I'm gonna have to put him.
I didn't really have a choice in the matter, so I would have taken it no matter what.
Right.
Get down. Mark is in rare form.
Yep. Oh yeah, Mark's in here. We got Mark Richardson and.
Are we actually live?
Yep.
Oh, good. Oh, great.
Yep.
Glad you didn't say anything bad.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Sure.
All right, so we're gonna kick this off officially.
We have the internet sensation Steve Donoghue with us.
the super duper sexy internet influencer. Or YouTube influencer?
Yeah, YouTube influencer. Yeah,
that's the word.
Yeah, see, we're not
influencers.
We don't even know how to say it. We don't even know what it is. I love that hat.
Making the fashion statement. I love it.
Did Sarah make you that hat too?
No, Hannah. Hannah made me that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's her commentary on the fact that there's still a stubborn part of BookTube that thinks I'm Satan incarnate. So she made me a Satan incarnate hat. It's just to seal the deal.
I love that. And as you can see, we're not home. We're house sitting for somebody. So Link doesn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's not 10,000 books behind you, so you must not be home.
Yeah.
Because I try to remind people, normal people out in the world, they don't have books in their home. They have a bookcase, maybe, and it's not full. Maybe one bookcase, maybe. Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, how long would it take those cabinets behind you to be filled with books if they were yours?
Yeah, I mean, they would be full within an hour of us moving in, because that's the first thing that I do when we get into a new place is I fill up my bookshelves. I love to be surrounded by my books.
We could fill this thing to the brim too. It weighs about 800 pounds.
Yeah, this thing is. She said it took forever to get this thing moved into the house.
Well, it's in 2 pieces. I'm not joking. The top half is about 300 pounds. The bottom half is that or more.
Yeah.
It's
First
outrageous.
thing I do when I move into a place is take my pants off.
Yeah.
Usually, I wait until the moving crew is gone. But sometimes, if they've done expert work, I feel like they deserve the tip.
I'm surprised they ever go on in the first place. Honestly.
Yeah. It's been a busy week. We haven't gotten a whole lot of videos out or anything because it's been one crazy thing after another.
Well, I've been reading.
Yeah, Becky's been reading a lot. I've been reading. Yeah.
It's Wednesday and I've only done 30 videos myself. I know. I'm way behind.
Slacking, dude.
So you got your deadline.
Both
finished.
Yes. I had a deadline up in Vermont, and that I, the first time I went up to the old house in Vermont, I had a deadline crash in on me out of nowhere. I had an editor contact me and say, "We need you to do this," and I wasn't familiar with going up and visiting the Richardsons, and I knew as soon as the editor told me, this was years ago when Frida was just a baby. I knew as soon as that editor told me that I would have to do it. That there was no way around it. I would have to do it. So I asked the Richardsons to take me back to Boston because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to be working on this for a chunk of every day, and that's me being rude as a guest. This time, the thought never even crossed my mind to go home when I could. They don't care. They already know I'm a boring guest. So I'm going to sit either in my room or on the couch and write all day long, and they already know that. So it barely affected things at all this time around, but they're both done. Both of those things are done.
God, that has to be a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very good feeling. Yeah, I treated myself to a trip to the Brattle.
Yeah. Steve, if we lived in Boston, we would find any old excuse to treat ourselves to a trip to the Brattle. I have got to go to the Brattle one day.
We live there.
It is one pilgrimage we have to make.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go there every single day with my Deb. When we were working, there was a bookstore, Barnes & Noble retail bookstore, big one, big ugly one, right around the corner from the Brattle. So every day we would just take our lunch together, walk around the corner and go to the Brattle and just sort of browse there. The young kids at the store were always mystified, saying, "Wait, you're going to take your break from a bookstore by going to another bookstore?"
I did nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And I want to put up this, and hi, Helen. Helen's been around our channel for a really long time, since the beginning. So this will be one of the few times we actually get to say hi, Helen.
Hi, Helen.
But yeah, we the closest that we get to go right now to bookstores are pretty well Goodwills. Goodwills, thrift shops, things like that. Now, I went to a thrift shop the other day and found these amazing Philip Jose Farmer Riverworld trade paperbacks, beautiful trade paperbacks for $1 each. And I was just shocked to find them at a thrift store in mint condition.
Don't forget the first edition Silmarillion we found.
Oh, yeah, we found a first edition Silmarillion.
I saw that with that great original cover.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's got all the illustrations inside and all that stuff. But the Silmarillion is one of the Tolkiens I haven't read. I know I need to get to that. Didn't the father start it and the son finish it? Is that how that worked?
The son found all of these fragments. And the son wasn't the only one. Also, the fantasy author Guy Gavriel Kay. They found these fragments.
Oh.
Some long, some that had obviously been lovingly worked on for a long time and were as finished as prose gets. Some that were slightly fragmentary. The type of thing that you do when you're creating a gigantic fantasy world. Bits and pieces and chunks and little obsessions and long epic poems just won't make it into the finished copy, but the Christopher Tolkien crafted it into a book. A terrific book. I mean, it's an odd reading experience, but it's a terrific book.
Yeah. Okay.
And Mark, the map is in the back of the book in perfect condition.
Yeah, it looked like the map had never been unfolded.
Yeah.
Just wonderful condition. Yeah, we were really excited to find it. But
it's a very timely find. Amazon's Lord of the Rings of Power is about ready to start, and
Yeah.
it's that whole thing is at least loosely based on the Silmarillion.
Yeah, this last Sunday we saw our first trailer for the show. I don't know,
80 million people have weighed in on YouTube. There are 80 million videos about that trailer and about how horrible it is and about how it's a betrayal of everything in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Right before the show starts, you're going to get a 3-minute trailer, and there's going to be a bunch of influencers crying and boo-hooing, talking about how great it looks, and
I'm here for it.
Just like they did with Dune.
I want to see it.
Which I thought Dune was an adeptly crafted movie. It's just not the Dune that I had hoped for.
Well, no, it wasn't the Dune that I'd hoped for either. Since it was in black and white and 9 hours long and boring. Which the Dune that I love, that I read, is not black and white. It's not 9 hours long, and it's not boring.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm in the minority for that. I guess the Villeneuve Dune has a lot of fans.
Yeah, it does. Becky enjoyed it. If I hadn't read the book, I think I would have enjoyed the movie a lot more. But
I'm easy to please. That's all there is to it. Yeah. And Mark, I am waiting just patiently, maybe a little impatiently.
I really wish they had. I wish that they'd chosen to do the Belgariad instead of Lord of the Rings. It's not just that with Lord of the Rings, you're not going to be able to please everybody, and that's goes with the territory. But it's that they don't have anything to work with. They were only given really the rights to a tiny fraction of the Silmarillion. They knew from the beginning that they were going to have to create stories out of whole cloth, and they know that's not going to go over well with the fan base. And despite what Amazon seemed ready right away to accuse any critics of being racist, sexist, or whatever. But despite what they seem to think about that fan base, the fan base for Lord of the Rings is 100 times greater than the fan base for Dune. It's absolutely enormous. It's whole family traditions.
Yeah.
You can't, it won't work. The strategy that Amazon is using, that they've used for so many other things, simply won't work with Lord of the Rings. You simply cannot say anybody who criticizes this is a racist. You simply can't do that. It's too many people. The fan base is just too big. But with the Belgariad, it impressed a lot of people. A lot of people love it, but it's a lot less strict in its lore. It's a lot more general in its approach.
Yeah.
The Belgariad, you could race swap, and nobody would really care.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
With Lord of the Rings, you're forced into the position of allying yourself with neo-Nazis because they're hating it, and you're forced to say, well, they hate it, and I kind of agree it's not good, but I'm not like them.
Yeah.
With the Belgariad, that would not be a problem at all.
Yeah.
And I've been rereading the Belgariad because of our upcoming event. What's its name again, Becky?
It's the Belgariad apocalypse. Bugger all.
You can't do it.
The Belgariad apocalypse.
There you go. Those of you in the chat who think that Becky's having a stroke, well, you're familiar with that from her own channel.
You might be right.
But also, we're having an event. We're doing an event where we're doing a nice slow read through of the Belgariad.
Mm-hmm.
When does that start? That starts in March?
Starts the beginning of March. We're going to get the first book in March, the second book in April, and so on and so forth.
And one of the things I love about the Belgariad too is it does not wear out its welcome. None of the books are more than, I don't think any of the books are more than 500 pages. Okay. I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm going to save my commentary for when the event actually happens. But I have been rereading the books, and there are two ways as a book that you cannot wear out your welcome. One way is for you to be nice and trim and fighting shape, and the other way is for you to tell a third of a story. There's two ways that you cannot wear out your welcome.
the first genre book by Terry Brooks kind of did that. It really was an exercise in vagary, but I enjoyed what was there.
I'm really hoping that I can convince you to do a Shannara read along.
Yeah,
once we're done with the Belgariad. What possible reason would there be for us not to go through giant epic fantasy cycles?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'll do for a reread of the Shannara series, because I remember reading the second one and being so absolutely peed off about the ending that I'm still mad about it.
If we call that event the Shannarama, then we'll have 2 fantasy events in a row that Becky can't say.
I'm not even going to try that one. That is a lesson in futility right there.
The event where the host can't say the name. It'll be kind of fun.
I only say the name because you're the one thinking them up.
But yeah, well, I mean, Mark's right. There's a lot of Shannara books. I think we'd stop at 3, right? I mean,
yeah, with the first 3. Maybe the second trilogy eventually, but
the weirdest thing to me, I don't know if I should even say it because it doesn't reflect well on me, but the place where I think the Shannara books stop is when the Darryl K. Sweet covers stop. Once the cover art was different, then I don't care about the series anymore.
God, you talk about iconic fantasy art though. Man, back in the 80s, those things were huge.
Yeah, I don't know how the Belgariad missed that. The American covers for the original Belgariad paperbacks are hideous. I remember thinking
they are.
When I wasn't reading them. I thought,
they are.
These are just incredibly ugly.
Yeah. The proportions are off on the figures.
Excuse me, keep talking.
Okay.
The proportions are off on the figures, and the figures are clearly cut and paste.
Yeah, she's gonna go grab. They
got somebody to do original artwork, and that original artwork was bad. They did it by computer, by only 1980s computers.
Oh yeah, yeah. I really do remember enjoying the books, but I was probably 20 years old when I read those, so it had.
I was younger than that because I was born in the 90s. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. Yeah. She's got a couple of the covers here. Her stepdad has the books on his shelf.
Oh yeah, Mark. Yes, the cover for the Sword of Shannara was the Brothers Hildebrandt, but wasn't it Darryl K. Sweet after that? Yeah, look at those things. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
They've turned Garion into like a barbarian child. Interesting. And then there's okay.
Man, could it be any farther away? It's like they tried to cover the pixelations by putting everything way back.
Those are in really good shape.
My dad, he loves his books, and he's a sword and sorcery guy through and through. So yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, he loves his fantasy. He's read every one of the Forgotten Realms Drizzt books, and I think it's up to past 30 now. And yeah, and R.A. Salvatore is still going strong on those things. But I wonder, I'm to the point, I wonder if R.A. Salvatore is writing any of those anymore.
Well, Mark would be the one to ask, since he knows the guy's writing. So, but maybe he hasn't had the time to read some of the later ones. I haven't kept up with them all.
Is R.A. Salvatore still writing those books?
The impression I get of the man, the impression I get from Mark is that if he weren't writing the books, he would say that. He wouldn't take the credit for it if he weren't doing it. But I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
Nice.
Mark said he writes them all. Okay. Well, the last thing I bought at the Goodwill, was that last night?
Yes.
That I went. Yeah, I found a copy of Shogun, which is the reason I went to this particular Goodwill, hoping they had a copy of Shogun. And I found a really beautiful mass market paperback copy, unread. Looks like it never been cracked. I mean, because there's no way you're going to read Shogun and not crack the spine.
You'll know, yeah. Somebody got it as a present and just hated the length of it. But what's the cover look like? Is it a sword or is it a man?
No, it's the man. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
That's
the
a very lovely
90s.
cover. Yeah.
Yeah, 90s cover, I believe.
Yeah, it is the 90s cover. Yeah. And
Yep.
there's a new cover now. And the cover now, once again, is beautiful. It's completely
It
different.
is.
It's still wonderful.
Yeah, the trade paperback is the one I would like to have, the new trade paperback. Beautiful cover. And that's a book that I'm getting into reading this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's about 1,400 pages, the trade or the mass market paperback is.
I
A
don't
lot
have a copy of Shogun.
Oh, you
In any
don't?
form, I don't have a copy at all. Nope.
Oh,
Don't have an ebook. Don't have a trade paperback. Don't have the hardcover. I don't have a copy of the book at all.
I'll keep an
I
eye
saw
out.
the video where you were talking about the big books you're going to read this year, and I immediately thought, oh, it's been 20 years since I read Shogun, and I went reaching for it, and it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you still want to read Anna Karenina? I would love to read that book with you.
I don't know. Seems kind of boring.
I have the same Bantam copy that you have.
There were quite a few giant books that you, in that video of yours where you were talking about knocking off giant books. I loved it. I loved the resolution, and there were quite a few you mentioned that that really attracted my attention.
Okay. I mean,
a mortal sin to do an Anna Karenina read along without David Murphy. It's his favorite book. He's read it like 6 times.
I did not know that. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm more of a War and Peace guy than an Anna Karenina guy myself.
Yeah,
and oh my God,
I
have no patience whatsoever for Gargantua and Pantagruel. No patience whatsoever for it. It's been so wonderful watching everybody who's got their inspiration from you reading that book and loving it. That's been wonderful to watch. And the whole time I've been saying it's not going to tempt me. I'm not slogging my way through that again. No way.
Yeah.
What's the next huge book that's on the horizon?
The next one is let's see, March. No, actually March. I'm doing. I'm doing a book on Napoleon the Great.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm reading that one, and then I'm also next month I'm also reading the second book of the 5 Warrior Angels by Brian Lee Durfee. I read the first one last month, and I was surprised at how much I got into it after a while. It started pretty rough for me, like most grimdark fantasy does. You've read that one, haven't you? The 5 Warrior Angels. Oh, okay. He's a booktuber, Brian Lee Durfee.
That's why I creased my brow, because I thought, isn't he a booktuber? He is.
He is, and to watch his videos, you would not think, this guy would make a great writer. Not at all. But the book, the first 200 or so pages is new character after new character after new character after new character, and people getting killed, and he's a huge he has a lot of grimdark influences, and you can tell that in a big way.
Sounds like
Oh,
a
no.
book like the start of a Stephen King book.
We got our first bot. Oh no.
Oh no.
Please hold.
Oh well.
All right.
He's
there
gone. We got 2 or 3 last time, and unfortunately, I think the same people try to make their way back in, but or the same bots. Yeah, right.
It's all
right.
automated.
Same bot.
You can write a program. You can write coding so that your bot detects live streams.
Yeah.
And just goes to them. Just goes to live streams. There's a way to do that, to detect the coding and go to live streams. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to deal with it. I'm going to try my own first live stream tomorrow, and I have no idea what it's going to be like. No idea at all. I'm not using StreamYard. Is it difficult to do you think?
StreamYard?
Well,
no.
Have you ever done anything else? Have you ever tried just YouTube?
No, we haven't. We've always done StreamYard. I didn't know you could just use YouTube that way.
You can just use YouTube, but I am really worried that because YouTube is such a huge ecosystem, that I'll be flooded with bots. I'm really worried.
Oh yeah, very well.
StreamYard probably protects you a lot. But YouTube, I doubt that it does.
Yeah.
If people can upload all the stuff that I see every day, then there aren't many protections. But is Durfee's book what you're reading for FFS? No, it's too big.
No. I'm reading. I'm reading it in March. I'm just reading Gargantuan Pantagruel this month because it was just part of the big book project that
Well, what are you reading for FFS this week?
Oh, I'm reading an anthology called. Here, I'll show it to you. It's Grimdark Grimoire, and so far I don't like it, but I'm reading that,
This is a Grimdark anthology.
Yeah, it's a Grimdark anthology I got from here. I'll pull it up.
You can actually get it to work.
What? It does work. It works well. My tablet works better than yours.
You're like, touch it, please. It's all over the screen. It's like, nope, sorry.
Whenever my dad is
getting
down off screen saying, "I hope you can get it to work," she's not talking about a tablet. Just saying. I like your situation better than mine.
Yeah, I got this from directly from the company. It's called Grimdark Grimoire, and it's just got some newer
What do you mean
Grimdark
directly from the company.
There you can buy directly from. Let me get the name. You can buy directly from the company website, whatever these books are.
I was about to throw a hissy fit. If you told me they sent you a copy and they didn't send one to me, I was going to throw a hissy fit. But what is what is the device? What is that tablet?
Oh, this is a Kindle Fire 10-inch.
Oh
yeah.
My!
Yeah.
What's the memory?
Is it?
I have
128 gig. I think is what I have in here.
Okay. Did you root it, or is it still on the Kindle system? I
rooted it.
You did.
Yeah.
So it's an Android tablet now.
Yes, it is. It's an Android tablet. I've got Google Play on it, the Google Play Store, so I can put it.
Everything. So you can put everything.
Yeah, everything. The one thing I cannot get to work on here though is the Nook app.
Well, no.
Yeah.
you'd think not. No.
Yeah, and I really did try. I mean, I thought maybe I could get away with it, but no. So I downloaded a great EPUB reader called Read Era.
Read Era, yeah, they're great.
Excellent.
They are the best of the bunch. Now that Adlico doesn't seem to work on anything new, and it was great, but Read Era is the best. I just discovered this just the other day. I have a Samsung tablet that's really, really good. It's the newest device that I have. A viewer sent it to me. She doesn't use it anymore, so she sent it to me, and I absolutely love it. And I was happily filling the Nook app with all kinds of books. And then one day, the Nook app not only stopped adding new books, but stopped working. And I'm embarrassed to say how long I went thinking, well, I can't use the tablet anymore. And then one day, just out of the blue, I thought, well, you could download a free EPUB reader. It doesn't need to be Nook. And so I deleted the Nook app, downloaded. I tried, must have been a dozen EPUB readers, and Read Era was the one that was the best by far. So
easily the best.
Because the Nook app, I only needed it because it was so convenient with EPUB.
Yeah. I tried at least half a dozen on here before I found Read Era, and the problem with the others is the formatting. It's terrible.
Yeah, I couldn't get Read Era on my phone for some reason. It wasn't available.
Yeah.
So I downloaded an EPUB reader that doesn't even tell you what page you're on.
It's really option
to tell you what page you're on.
What year is that Kindle?
2021.
Oh, did you get it on Black Friday? Did you get it?
I did.
You
$75.
And that's a case too that you have on it, right? A rubber case.
Yeah, I've got. It's a.
Oh my! Does that have so that handle extends?
Yes, I'll show you.
Hi, Angie.
So it works as a kickstand. And it was very affordable. I got this case for I think $18.
What's the battery life like?
Excellent. I can read on this for a week without charging it.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I got a distinctly golem like impression as well.
Like the rambling reviewer, precious. Well, I have to ask all of these tech questions because I am going to demand that you send it to me. And I'm a sexy influencer. So you're pretty much going to have to do that.
I'm thinking I'd have to pry it out of his cold, dead fingers and like
it's a great thing.
Salt the earth.
I think Amazon must know that a lot of people are getting these devices because if you root them, you've got a fully functional Android device for a third of the price. Amazon must know that, but they haven't solved it.
She has a $900 iPad that she rarely uses. She has an iPad Pro that she rarely uses, and I still and I could have free reign of it, but I still pick this up when
you have an iPad Pro you rarely use.
I'm gonna beat you up. Like, don't go to sleep tonight. I know where you're sleeping.
Define rarely. Steve would use it every day.
I love my iPad Pro.
Oh, you can't love it all that much if you hardly ever touch it.
I use it to write on. I use it to write on. I can't use it to read because it weighs like 6 or 7 pounds, and I will drop it on my face and die.
Okay, when you drop it on your face and die, would you will it to me?
She will put you in her will tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'll write up a will just for you, Steve.
Well, that probably is the most valuable thing we own. So we should probably put that in a will.
Mark sticking up for print books, saying that you can bring them to the beach and you don't have any problems.
I think, but when you have all of Patrick O'Brien to the beach in your house,
you can't bring 100 alternatives to the beach. So
you know, we probably do have 3,000 print books in our house.
Yes, we probably do.
I read as many print books as I do ebooks, but sometimes I'm actually reading both. Like if I'm reading in the living room, I'll read a print book. But if I'm reading in the dark in the bedroom, I can't. So I have to read an ebook.
As long as we're on the subject of tech, I thought we were going to talk about fantasy, but as long as we're on the subject of tech, I have a question. So you say that you read both. I'm dying to know. I love collecting from people the moment when they suddenly realized there was no difference. What was the moment? Do you remember the moment when suddenly, oh yeah, it's either a print book or an ebook, it makes no difference to me? Was it waiting in line, or did you adopt the idea right away?
I adopted the idea back when the original Sony e-reader came out.
Oh wow.
Back in that was late 90s or early 2000s, one or the other. And I bought the original Sony e-reader.
Did you really? Do you still have it?
No, I don't. I can't find it. Actually, I probably do. Yeah, I'll bet it's in a box. But it had the e-ink display.
Yes.
It was the original e-ink tablet, and it took forever for that screen to pop up. But when I read Ender's Game on that.
Did you really? Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was the first thing I read on an e-reader, and I loved the experience. I got to where I loved the experience, and
you didn't need any conversion at all.
No, I didn't. I read science fiction more than anything, and I kind of always have. And, so that kind of made me want to. Hey Tom. So that kind of made me want to switch over as fast as I could.
I wonder if that's true with a lot of people. I wonder if the earliest and most comfortable adopters of e-reading were science fiction fans. I would love to find that out. I would love to know I wonder if the people who adopted it the easiest were the people who had been mentally prepared for it for decades ahead of time. Oh, Angie Jones stabbing me in the back. So I have a thing for old tech. So what? Wait. Angie Jones, does your comment perhaps betray the fact that you have a piece of old tech yourself that you have not boxed up and sent to Steve? Just go over to the old tech cabinet, the place that you just stuff things. You don't ever look in there. What's in there? What could you send to Steve?
Don't fall for it, Angie. Be
I'm
strong.
phrasing it as a request now rather than a demand. I don't want to have to cancel anybody. You know?
And Angie may very well have a Kobo reader too. She's in the UK.
She probably has an old Kobo reader in addition to the new one that she's using. She probably has an old one she could send to me.
There we go.
I find those stories fascinating though, of when that worked for people. I still know people who've never had that moment. They say, "Oh no, I can't. No, I can't read an ebook. I just couldn't do it." But
she's going to send you her Zune.
Angie has an old Kobo. I can now sense it. Anakin Skywalker style. I can sense that she has an old Kobo with a plug and an adapter cord that she could send to me. She just hasn't because she hates me because I smell. But I remember the moment for me. I had an old iPhone 5. And a kid who used to come over here every week for Wine and Calzones was constantly telling me, you can put books on this thing. And I was saying, hey, look at how small it is. I'm not going to read a book on a device. And then he put Anthony Trollope novel on there. And I could read it, sure. I could call it up. I could affect the text. I could churn the pages with my thumb and whatnot. But then in the course of one day's errands, when I had one delay after another, I realized that in addition to being able to read it, I could also lose myself in a book. I was totally lost, as if it were a print book in my hand. There was no difference whatsoever. And that was it for me. That was totally it for me.
And another thing I really like about the e-readers as well is sometimes I just want to read in a dark room. And I never got into book lights. I don't like book lights. They that really does hurt my eyes, with the lights shining off the pages. These screens like this, these lit screens, they don't bother me at all. This stuff.
No, they're built to be a lot more comfortable. Oh, see Angie's comment? I was right. You all doubted my midi-chlorians, but I was right. She has an old Kobo that she isn't sending to me. This is a pure hate campaign on the level of the Holocaust.
Yeah, for me, it was about.
I sort of like this hysterical, sexy influencer talk. I could get used to this.
Yeah, for me, it was about the time I started getting arthritis in my hands. Reading on my phone is a lot easier than trying to hold a book open because I have arthritis in my fingers and my left wrist. So for me, it's a matter of not reading in pain.
Yeah, what was the first device you read on?
Reading on his iPad? What you say that you like reading the new Star Wars books on your iPad? I want to know which Star Wars books, and I also have to point out your typing of Wikipedia is missing an E. Just have to point that out. That's all. but I also want to know which books. I want to know which books you're reading.
Yeah, I like a lot of the Star Wars novels, but there are lots of very, very weak Star Wars novels.
Yes. Yeah, some of them are unbelievably weak.
They are.
And they're hemmed in by the extended universe. The writer of a book will know, all right, well, I read 12 books on things on the year before I'm setting my story, and I read 15 books on the year after. So if I want to use these two canonical characters, virtually nothing can happen to them in the course of this book. I already know this. Otherwise, I will be making enemies in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, there are times that can be interesting. Like I read Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis was told us a whole lot about Emperor Palpatine that we didn't know. I mean, I knew Palpatine wasn't going to die. I knew Plagueis was. So, I knew the ending, but I thought it was actually pretty well done. The politics were really well done in that book. It was more of a political novel than it was any sort of thriller or action.
Yeah.
And
I tend to think that the Star Wars extended universe novels that are about uncharted territory are much more effective than, for instance, here's a lost chapter from Han and Luke's history or whatever.
Yeah.
Those seem much more constrained. Whereas if you're breaking out into new territory, then the books tend to be better. Although it also depends on the author as well, you know, and there you're at the mercy of what they can do with the material they're given, the deadline they're given, that sort of thing, well, the things they can and cannot do. I had a Star Wars novel come up just yesterday. I've been very closely monitoring the cataclysm of responses in the neckbeard quasi-fascist YouTube space about the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Yeah,
they have been making 10 videos a day. Of these reactionary channels have been making 10 videos a day on the subject, and I've been closely watching that, just to sort of, you know, flirt with the dark side myself. I've been watching their videos to see where they're coming from. And in one of those videos, they're mad about a lot of things. These guys, they're not just mad about that one thing. Like, for instance, Disney has a Star Wars hotel. The Galaxy Cruiser. The hotel experience is you go there, and the experience is you're acting like you're on a galactic hotel cruise ship.
Wow.
And all the attendants are dressed like Star Wars characters. The cabins all look like Star Wars sets and whatnot. And these neck-bearded fascists are going nuts about that too. They absolutely hate it. I don't know why, but they absolutely hate it. And one of them yesterday, in the course of ripping apart this hotel for the 80 Millions video, mentioned a novel called The Courtship of Princess Leia that was really good. He liked it too. So he mentioned the novel, and I'm nodding like I forgot for a minute that I wasn't watching BookTube. that I was nodding at, you know, Hitler Youth.
Yeah. Isn't that Dave Wolverton?
Yeah.
That wrote that book. Yeah. We lost him. We lost him not long ago.
Dave just recently died.
Yeah, he did.
I think that book would probably be on if you were to ask Star Wars fans, you know, a list of top 20 Star Wars extended universe novels, I bet that would be on most of those lists.
Probably so. Yeah. Wolverton, you know, I read his first book of his big, I cannot remember the name of that fantasy series he wrote, but it was on the name, or with the name, David Farland. Huge fantasy series that he wrote over a lot of years. I don't know if he was still writing those or not, but I thought the first one was really well done.
Yeah, the Rune Lords, right? It was the Rune Lords.
Yes, it was.
The first one was fantastic.
Fantastic. Very good. You can.
Oh, did you see Mark's comment? You get that son of yours back into this room to make him watch this video.
You know, his son, his oldest son, looks so much like my nephew. I'll have to see if I have to send you a couple of pictures, one of his son and one of my nephew, and they look so much alike.
It is wild how much they look alike.
Their hair is the same color. I think I mean, my nephew's older. He's 17 now, but
is your nephew also some sort of mumbling loser?
Probably so.
I think he'd mumble when confronted with Steve too.
I'm going to interpret that Mark's son was mumbling in admiration.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Hope springs eternal. I like it.
I can't help but notice, though, that the now infamous Angie Jones has resorted to emojis instead of packaging up her old Kobo.
Well, she's
do anything rather than pack up her old Kobo.
She's also afraid you're going to spell check her, I think. So.
I'm not going to spell check anybody. The only reason I spell check Wikipedia is because Star Wars fans never seem to know it. In fact, they're willing to die about it. They're saying, I am not misspelling Wikipedia. Thank you. I've invested my whole identity in this. And then they go and look at it, and they are misspelling it.
Yeah, what did you think of the original? Well, of the Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy.
I love them.
Oh, me too.
They're really, really good.
Yeah, they transcended the extended universe stuff by a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I first encountered that kind. I love the kind of thing that he does right at the beginning of the first book. There, I first encountered it in the Vampire Lestat, where you're not 10 pages into the Vampire Lestat when Lestat, who's narrating the novel, tells you not to believe anything that you read in Interview with a Vampire.
Oh.
He comments on the continuity of the same story that he's in. And I thought that was just thrilling. And then at the beginning of the Thrawn trilogy, Zahn's narration basically says, well, who knows what kind of shape the Empire would be in if it hadn't had a maniac like Darth Vader in charge of things. Who knows what kind of shape they'd be in if they'd had an actual military man. And I stopped for a minute and I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's right. Vader is just a lunatic. He's a lunatic with magic powers. He's not. I mean, they tried to retrofit that in the Clone War saga by making, Anakin Skywalker a general or having him have all sorts of military experience. But Darth Vader's decisions in the original Star Wars movies are horrible. And you think, what if Thrawn had been in his place instead?
Yeah. Ian and I from B&B Books, you see his comment there. We read we read Thrawn 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that. The new version, and it is not. It just isn't the same. I think he had to be too strict with what he wrote. I'm sure Lucasfilm had tons to do with that. Disney had tons to do with what he put in the book, whereas they didn't in the original. I think he was probably given a lot more free reign in the original original trilogy. I
read a couple of the new Thrawn books, and all I could think was somebody somewhere sat Timothy Zahn down at a table and said, "We really are thinking of using this character in a movie. So here's a long list of what you can and cannot do." And it's at that moment that writers realize the Faustian bargain that they've made if they're writing novels based on someone else's characters. Because Zahn what can he say? I made up Admiral Thrawn, so what? It's a Star Wars novel. We own it, lock, stock, and barrel. You didn't make up. You might have made him up, but we own the character.
Yeah,
that's got to be bitter. That's the same thing as comic book writers get. They write 15 issues of Spider-Man, and in the first 2 issues, Spider-Man is facing a new villain called the Jigsaw Man. In the next 2 issues, he's facing a new villain called Leapfrog. And then in the next 2 issues, he's facing a new villain called the Punisher. Now, you're a writer. You've made up all 3 of those characters. The Punisher is suddenly worth $1 billion. You can't say, hey, can I have some of that?
Right.
Can't do that at all. Same thing with Jim Starlin, a great comic book artist and writer.
He was.
Who is now wanting to know, well, I created Thanos. I made up the Thanos snap. I made up all of that. Any chance of some pocket change here and there, maybe?
Yeah. You sell a whole lot of yourself when you work for Marvel or DC Comics. At least with Image, the people who are writing and the people who come up with the property, they continue to be part owners of that,
right? Until
they sell that to Image, until they want to sell that to Image. And I think that was a great thing Image did, but then Image just flooded the market and killed themselves. But that company committed suicide.
That was one of the original tenets of Image, right? That was one of the original selling points, is they said our creators will partly own their stuff.
They did,
unlike Marvel and DC, where you absolutely do not.
Yeah, and somehow Rob Liefeld got rich. Ooh, man.
I'm still confused about that one.
Yeah.
The Rebels animated show was the reason for the return of Thrawn.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how he wrote the new Thrawn books. Did they just throw money at him to do it?
I'm sure they did.
Part of the animated show? Is he maybe have a scripting credit on the animated show?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I do like the Rebels animated show, but yeah, Thrawn showed up in season 3, I believe, of the animated show, and I think Thrawn is a great character, but man, he just didn't have anything that made him interesting to read in the new books. It was just not there.
Yeah, I agree.
I hated the
new books. The new books read like script treatments. So very thin, not atmospheric at all. There's so much atmosphere in the first 3 Heirs of Empire books. But there's so much atmosphere in there that isn't present in the new books.
Mm-hmm. What?
I said I hated all of the Thrawn books.
You didn't read them?
No, I did not read one of them. Not a one. I don't like. I'm not a fan of the Star Wars books, but I've never been a huge fan of the Star Wars movies either, because I'm a weirdo.
Wait, yeah, she's more of a Trek person.
I'm a Trekkie.
Yeah, and which I am too. But I don't think I should have to choose between one or the other.
Well, no, I formed a hate relationship with Star Wars when I was very young, because I saw that one scene with Han Solo and Leia where she says, "I love you," and his response is, "I know," and I'm like 8 or 9 years old going, "What the hell was that?" Yeah, that's my
I was waiting. I wasn't going to say anything. I was sitting here very peacefully, minding my P's and Q's. I was waiting for someone in the chat to point out that Thrawn is a sexy blue alien. A.G. Jones has finally done that. Good. So I don't have to say that.
I can always count on Angie Jones to get down to the really important things.
Yeah, I thought I could count on her for sending me a Kobo.
You're not getting away from that, Angie.
I was wrong. I was wrong to count on her for that.
And you know she's in the Belgariad reading group, right?
Not anymore. She's not.
Oh, I don't know, Steve. She was there first. You might have to fight her out.
The Belgariad group has to send Steve a piece of old tech.
I told you she's got a Zoom she can send you. It's a great old
By the way, what's the name of the Belgariad group?
The Belgariad group.
Oh. Okay, that'll work.
So,
Belgariad apocalypse.
But I want to say something about February fantasy stories. I've been reading these fantasy short stories, which is something I haven't done a lot of over the years. I've read a lot of fantasy novels. I've read some fantasy stories, but to me, the lot seems to be more uneven than science fiction. I've always been more of a science fiction reader than a fantasy reader, but science fiction short stories to me are easier to get into. They're easier to find. It's easier to get to the good stuff, and I don't know. What do you think?
I honestly, I know what I want to say. It's just not coming out. I find the fantasy stories a little less engaging than the sci-fi stories.
Yeah,
I agree completely. I
don't know what it is. I think it's because with the fantasy stories, you almost always have to build a world or dive into an existing world.
You have to build a world
having a short story does not lend to that world building at all.
No, right.
And especially when you also have to build characters.
Right. If you have a science fiction short story in 2022 and you've got 23 pages and that's all you've got, and you say on page 2 that your character, in order to learn something, tapped a screen, you have no need to explain anything to your reader. Mm-hmm. Whereas on page 2 of your fantasy short story, if you want a character to learn something that they don't have direct access to, you not only have to, describe what they're doing, you have to explain how they're doing it for every step of the way.
You have to create a magic system or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that it lends itself. And also, I think most people who are writing fantasy short stories learned how to love fantasy from immensely long books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so it's they don't. I'd be willing to bet that most of the current crop of fantasy writers who are really popular have never read most of the short stuff that shaped the genre 80 years ago. So they don't. I agree completely. The chances, if you open just a random science fiction fantasy anthology of 100 pages, and let's say it's split down the middle, half and half fantasy and science fiction, the chances of you encountering a fantasy story that are really good, I think they're much lower than finding a science fiction story that's really good. I don't think that has anything to do with whether or not you like science fiction over fantasy.
Right.
Becky's right. I think it's just a constriction of the genre that you.
The most successful short stories that I've come across for the fantasy genre have been the ones that actually take place in our world. It's
where a huge amount
magic of some sort coming into our world.
Right.
That's why urban fantasy is so popular in the short story and novella grouping. Honestly, I think it's because it's taking place in our world. You don't have to do any world building,
or not as much. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
A lot of the other really effective fantasy stories just straight up take from common elements of universal folklore. A fantasy short story writer does not need to explain a ghost.
Right.
Doesn't need to explain it at all. Doesn't need to explain how it happens or anything you expect. That author does not have to go on 10 paragraphs about how you can't touch a ghost, but a ghost can affect you, because we already know what that is.
Right.
But if you're gonna think up something entirely new,
short story is not the place to go about that. Yeah.
And Harfoot Fallowhide says the Conan short story, and there I would say that 90% of the work is being done by Conan, by the character of Conan.
Yeah.
He stands in for you. He's learning everything cold, just like you are. What he doesn't understand by the end of a Conan short story, you also will never understand. How many things in a Conan short story are ever explained?
Well, and I think about that. I read what is it, the Tower of the Elephant, or the Elephant?
The Tower of the Elephant.
The Tower of the Elephant. And I read that last week for FFS, and the magical being at the top of that tower is very obviously based on Ganesh from Indian folklore. And so he's taking folklore from our world and molding it into this Conan world. And again, you don't have to explain that,
right?
Because there are so many people who are familiar with that character,
right?
That they're going.
And also in Tower of the Elephant, a huge part of the drama of the story is Yag Kosha explaining his story to Conan. That's a huge part of the story. It's not like you have to shoehorn that in. That's very convenient. But think about, like, for instance, what's the Conan story? The Slithering Shadow. Virtually nothing. And who's a poopsie? Who's a poopsie?
Hi. Lord, like, thank you. I needed that. Here, okay, thank you. Okay. Just derailed the conversation entirely.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You look at a lot of canonical Conan short stories. Either they boil down to human evil, human cannibals, a human warlord, or they boil down to a fantasy element that is never explained. Robert E. Howard very cannily made an operating principle out of, the thing that makes my stories cool is that you don't get an explanation. But if you're going to write a fantasy short story in which you do want to explain things, good Lord, it's harder to do. I would argue much harder to do.
Much harder. Yeah. I read the Solomon Kane, and who was the other big famous Conan construct? I cannot remember the name of the other character.
Like Conan the Chimerical.
No. Yeah, Cole. Yeah.
Cole the Carter.
I really enjoy those as well, but they have an even bigger foot in our world. They're like you can tell there are part of those stories that is supposedly taking place in France, and they're using pistols instead of swords, and
yeah, and Solomon Kane often comes across human enemies. I mean, witch doctors, that sort of thing. So I tend to agree. I think it's much harder to write a successful fantasy story from a cold start.
Yeah,
like one of my favorite fantasy short stories of all time is over 100 years old. It's by Lord Dunsany, and it's called The Kith of the Elf Folk, and it's about a little fairy, a little swamp fairy, a floating light in the swamp, and Dunsany knows that he doesn't have to explain anything more than that. He doesn't have to go into great detail about the lore of the fairies that he's talking about. He knows already that you'll have an idea of what he's talking about. The same thing with his famous story, The Hoard of the Gibelins, which I think is the one in the big book of classic fantasy.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah,
it's fantastic. But what is
it?
It
is.
It's a premise. It's not actually a story. It's just a premise. It doesn't explain anything.
Right. It could have started. You know, it could have sparked an entire novel, probably, but it didn't. I don't guess it did. Not that I can remember, but I enjoyed that.
Is that grimdark grimoire what you'll be reading for grimdark? You'll just be going through that for the grimdark week?
For now, when I finish that, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go. I have some other dark fantasy anthologies on my tablet that I can go through, and like the best dark fantasy stories of 2010. I have like 2010 to 2018 or something like that. So I'll just pick and choose stories out of there
on your tablet.
Yes.
Where do the books tend to come from on your tablet? Are they Kindle books?
Most of the books I have are Kindle books. I have some that have been sent to me via EPUB that I put on my.
And since you rooted the thing, it will now take side loading, so you can upload any EPUBs that you're sent.
Yes. Yeah, I can. But the way that I do it and the way that I found is the easiest for me is to take those EPUBs, email them to myself, open them from the email with ReadEra, and it stays there. It opens right up and it just stays there. So that's been the easiest way for me. I'll just email 10 of them to myself and open them that way. One at a time. It takes 5 minutes at the very most. So
if you're having technical problems with it, perhaps you should send it to me. I'm happy to take a look at it for you. Happy to do that.
Never fall for that again.
You know, my first one that I had, my 2018 version, I left it on the hood of our truck, and we took off without it one day, and I still don't know where it is.
It's gone.
I lost everything I had written on it because I was using it for writing with my keyboard and all that stuff. I lost all of my EPUBs that I had, and I was
upsetting.
I was not a happy person for about a week.
The rambling reviewer says Dunsany hasn't worked for me yet, and now I don't know whether or not I should cancel him. Should I cancel him?
Well, no canceling. You're a good internet. What's the word?
Sexy influencer is the phrase
sexy
you're looking
influencer.
for. A sexy
Yes.
influencer.
Yes,
yeah, you're a good one, but we get drunk on power pretty easily.
But use your powers for good, Steve.
Allow me to
great
quote,
power comes great responsibility, Steve.
We get an EPUB file of the rules once we become sexy influencers. And one of those rules is there is no good and there is no evil. There are only clicks.
There's only Zool. Well, that's the bad part. I was driving, and I still feel bad.
Yeah, she was driving, and I heard something. We got to her. We were going to her mom's house to play a round of Dungeons and Dragons. We heard something hit out when we were out on the road, and I was like, "What was that?"
We had a total Firefly moment. What was that?
And then we get there, and I'm looking around for my tablet because I knew I brought it, and I don't know where it is. We backtracked about 5 times, and I lost my tablet with all of that stuff on it.
And these comments are So this week I read an arc. It's called the Occult Vengeance by Kel Inksten.
Where did you get an ARC?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you have an ARC of a book that I don't? Why?
Because I asked for it.
No, we
Don't
got.
have to ask for it. I'm a sexy influencer. Do these people know who I am? She has an ARC that I don't have.
It was very good, but I actually feel kind of bad because it ended up being like 280 pages, and it was supposed to be less than that, and I messed up, but I still read it. And it reminded me of what you were talking about fantasy stories being about race. Because this book, it revolved entirely around race, but it was so good. I enjoyed it very much. There was a foul-mouthed fairy and a terminally low self-esteem hero. It was great.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah.
Right?
But no,
I'll have to pay full price for it and read it when it comes out.
she gets hers from the same place I get mine. There's this place called Hidden Gems Books. It's a self-publishing or indie publishing company, where they send their books, and then the company finds reviewers, and so they'll say, like, we need 200 reviewers for this book, or we need 20 reviewers for this book. Sometimes it's usually more like 20 to 50, and we haven't been turned down yet.
Wait a minute. Oh, so they're rounding up reviewers. So you don't get the book if you don't review it.
Well, no, you can still get it. Whether you review it or not is up to you. If you don't, you just leave something that says, "I'm not going to review this book."
Will you be denied another book?
No. She is denied 2 so far. 2 books that she didn't review so far. One of them was because it was horrible.
Unintelligible is what it was.
It was not ready. It wasn't ready for publication. It should never have even been sent to an editor. Terrible. So, so you find
those books every single day. I review a book just like that every single day.
Yeah.
This person did not have kind of punctuation, and I'm still confused.
You know, Becky reviewed a book that you hated, Steve, too, and I hated it as well. It was called Luster by Raven Leilani.
Do you believe the critical praise that thing is getting? Just a bucket of slop, and people, everyone in the critical world, tripping over themselves to praise it. I still can't believe it. I mean, the indie world, people who are just looking at it through identity politics, that I can sort of predict.
Yeah.
But professional reviewers who are on staff at major newspapers and magazines, I wouldn't think they'd be vulnerable to it.
Yeah, you know what I find sad about it too is I believe Raven Leilani could write. You know, I think
she's in the book. If you don't look at anything in her book making any sense, then you can see that she can write. Yes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's a package deal.
Yeah, I know.
And she doesn't do it. Every time I see something like that on social media or online somewhere, I always want to just append a link to my own review. Answer the arguments that I make in my review. And if you can do that, then, then I might consider reconsidering the book. But the objections I had to the book aren't answerable.
Yeah, I read half of that book almost out loud to Scott, going, "You ain't gonna believe this."
Yeah, just awful. And I would call it one of the most unpleasant reads that I had in a really long time. I mean,
that's a good word.
Wait, you're saying Luster was on this Hidden Gems program?
No. This was a couple years ago when it right as it was coming out. No, we got that one from
was it Amazon? We ordered it or something. I can't remember how I got it.
Well, yeah, actually, you know what? We might have got that from Amazon and gotten it early. Yeah. We got it before it came out.
Yeah, so Mark, to answer your question, both of my parents play at D&D. My father is our dungeon master. Hi, Brandy.
Well, her dad.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has a dad now. She used to have a father.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah. So at the end of January, my biological father died. And it's not a horrible thing. I haven't seen him in 17 years. And the last time I saw him was the day my grandmother died. And then the last time I spoke to him was 6 years ago. So he died. And then on February 4th, I was called in to the will reading. Because
she was named.
Yeah, my brother, his son, who I'd actually never met before, got in touch with me on Facebook and said, "You've been named in your father's will." And I'm like, "Okay, that's awesome." So I went, and I was named only long enough to say, for reasons of my own, I leave my daughter nothing. So yeah, that was my weekend at the beginning of February. That's why I didn't read all that much fantasy, because I was a little shell shocked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have my mother married this really fantastic guy named Doug, who's been more of a father in the last 3 years than my father ever was. But he's the geek with all the really, really great books, and the one who does the dungeon mastery and all that. He's such a great guy.
Yeah, and a hell of a dungeon master too. He can spin a story. I wish he had written some fantasy novels. Man, he can spin a story. It is so good.
Can you help him? Can you help him?
But I wonder how many fantasy authors actually got started in Dungeons and Dragons.
A lot of them. I bet a lot of them did. It lends itself to world building, which is otherwise the most tedious and time-consuming part of writing the book.
Yeah. He doesn't want to howl. He just wants to bark right now. He howls a lot, though.
Uh-oh. That's getting attention from someone here. Oh, my.
Oh, really?
Oh, goodness. Oh.
There it is.
Yeah, all you have to do is ask him. We asked him one day, you want to howl? And he started. He had heard us talking about it. I don't know. He is a smart little dog. And schnauzers are known for being extremely smart too.
Frida's really smart. She is really smart.
Good.
I never thought that I would have, I never thought that anybody would really compete with the smartest beagles that I used to have. But she has a different kind of intelligence, but it's every bit as great. She's really smart. She figures things out. I don't have to worry about explaining things to her much.
I'm going to start a betting pool that says Mark actually frames. That Mark actually frames all of your reviews and puts them on his refrigerator.
When I wrote my review of Lester, I assumed that all of the mainstream reviews would pretty much fall in line. And then one after another, I started seeing ecstatic praise. People saying this is a brilliant novel. It most certainly is not.
No.
And I can't really figure out why that is. I have all sorts of horrible theories about why that is. I mean,
yeah,
I'm still confused about it.
Yeah, I was actually kind of looking forward to it. I had read, what the book was about, which sounded fine. I'm not a big content. I'm not really worried about the content of a book. I just worry about whether it's written well or not. And man, it was so bad.
It sort of failed on all fronts.
And when I say unpleasant, I'm talking about abuse. This girl putting up with all this abuse,
weird bodily functions that we really don't need to know about.
Yeah, just not something I wanted to read. And like I said, I'm not normally a reader of content. I don't care about that.
So, Mark, can I ask a question about Hidden Gems, since you were familiar with it? Mm-hmm. Are the reviews that you write for them signed?
Okay, so the reviews, you actually write the reviews on your Amazon page. They're linked through Amazon.
Amazon, Goodreads, wherever you want to put them.
And then upload your page to the Hidden Gems site.
So you don't do anything for their site itself? It's all third party?
Yeah, it's It's not yet. Yeah, you don't put anything on their site except your links to your reviews, and you can let them know that you download it to your page.
Does your review have to appear on Goodreads or Amazon, or can it appear somewhere else?
It can appear somewhere else, but they want it to appear on Amazon, but it doesn't have to. You can actually put any link on there you want.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I've noticed, to get back to FFS, one thing I've noticed is how few, when we're talking classic fantasy, sword and sorcery or classic fantasy. Oh, we got another bot.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Right.
I'm telling you, we have arrived. We're getting bots now. we're headed right up there with the sexy internet influencer.
It's interesting to me how few. Where are the cinematic classic fantasies? Where are the cinematic sword and sorceries? The movies or the TV shows? There's very little to pick from. That's from any that's any newer than 5 years old.
You know, I'm actually really surprised they haven't recreated a Conan show or even movie.
I wish
it was 10 years ago almost that Jason Momoa was in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
very good movie. It's a very good Conan movie.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you have. You enjoyed it.
I thought I didn't see it.
No, you've seen
it. Oh
it.
Lord, I don't remember.
She watched it with me like 10 years ago when it first came out. but yeah,
after that, if we exclude, for instance, long form shows like Game of Thrones, after that movie, where was the next sword and sorcery or sword and sandals type fantasy movie? Am I right in thinking that virtually none have come out in theaters since then?
Yeah,
the last Hobbit movie, maybe, which isn't really sword and sandals.
We started
down a really long comic book movie.
It was Conan, and then a couple of years after Conan, what's his name? The guy from Twilight starred as Hercules, and in the same year, The Rock also starred as Hercules. But after that, nothing at all, and that isn't really sword and sorcery. If your main character can lift a building, that's not really sword and sorcery.
Right. Yeah. No.
I'm wondering now, if I were to look around on Netflix, would I find straight to Netflix movies of sword and sorcery? I wonder if I would find that. I know the long form stuff is there on the small screen. Like for instance, the Shannara books. The Shannara series on TV is actually very good. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Oh, right, The Witcher. Yes,
that's true.
Harford Alahide says The Witcher, and he also says he's going to be sending me a piece of old tech.
Oh, okay. I missed that one. Hold on, let me put it up on the screen.
Yeah, the Witcher I do like. I just wish. The one thing Netflix does that I wish they could make their seasons a little bit longer. 10 episodes. I would like to see a 15 episode, 16 episode season of The Witcher. But these people are, well, like Henry Cavill is such a big star. They would probably have to pay him an exorbitantly.
Yeah, and I wonder if that, I don't know the story behind The Witcher. I think I remember hearing that he made it known that he was a big fan, and that's what made it happen.
Okay.
So, for instance, what would happen if that weren't the case? What would happen if you had, like, for instance, I'd love to know the story behind how the Shannara adaptation got on TV.
Yeah.
How did that work? And, you know, what another one would be. What fantasy adaptations are coming out this year, for instance?
I want the Bulgarian.
The only one that I can think of in major theaters is one of the Fantastic Beast movies. The J.K. Rowling Fantastic Beast movies. I think the next one of those comes out this year.
And the Lord of the Rings books.
The Lord of the Rings TV show.
Coming out.
Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious that the neck-bearded quasi-fascists, the guys who are yelling about this in 4 videos every day, just naturally, they're not trying to, They just naturally say the author's name as Token. so it dovetails perfectly with their material. They don't even have to try. I checked. I went back into older videos even before they were angry about it. They still just say the author's name that way. I always want to leave a comment saying just the comment. My comment would just be 5 E's and an N. Een. Say it's Een. It's Tolkien. It's not Token.
Token.
It plays right into their hands. You know? In that sense, one of their big objections to this, to the way that Amazon is handling criticism of this, is correct. And it plays right into their hands. If you take a beloved, legendary material, a source material, and you start race swapping and gender swapping, you have a perfect weapon to aim at anybody who criticizes it. You don't have to listen to the criticism. You can just say, well, that's what's bothering you. That's what you're criticizing. That's what's getting under your skin. And never think about it. Never think otherwise. I'm sure that the people who made all of those decisions, who are seeing, good Lord, the comments field of Amazon's own page where the teaser trailer is, for some reason, I do not know why, but for some reason, they have not shut down their comments field. Ordinarily, studios and creators and whatnot immediately shut their comments field down, but Amazon hasn't done that. So the comments are still there to see, and it's tens and tens and tens of thousands of people writing in to say this is offensive, this looks terrible, this looks cheap, this is not Lord of the Rings. And like I said at the beginning of this live stream, it just amazes me that someone at Amazon, a whole room full of lawyers, had to sit there and say, all right, how do we react if people don't like this? We're paying $35 million to run a teaser trailer during the Super Bowl. There are a whole series of meetings. There's a whole floor of people whose job it is to anticipate bad reactions to anything. So those people had to have meetings where they said, okay, what's our strategy if people don't like this? And somehow the vote that had to win in those strategy sessions was, if people don't like this, we'll attack the fans. We'll start making personal accusations about the fans. We won't do anything else. We won't retool the teaser for the next event. We'll just attack them right away.
Yeah, they're trying to hand it off as critic proof.
Well, who could possibly? I wish I could be in. I wish I could have been in the room when that decision was made. When everybody all around the table said, "All right, are we all in agreement? We'll attack the fans if they criticize." I wonder if there was even a single dissenting voice of someone saying, well, no, that's a bad strategy. That's a real bad strategy. But you'd think, even if that was the decision, the universal decision, once the people at Amazon started to see that tens of thousands of negative reactions were coming in from all over the world in tons of languages, you'd like to think that once they saw that, they'd say, all right, well, we can't stick with that strategy. It didn't work. We attack the fans and they outnumber us.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, what would be, Harford Fallowhide, it is not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And I should warn you, it can only get worse. As bad as this show will be, this show is just the prelude. Jeff Bezos has made it perfectly clear that he doesn't just want 150 pages of the Silmarillion. He wants the filming rights to Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
And he's the richest person in the world, so he'll get them. And when that happens, if this same ideology rules, you don't think you're going to like what you see. I really don't. I don't think you're going to like what you see.
Yeah, it definitely scares the hell out of me to see what they're going to do. But
I say I'm optimistically excited about it because it's got my namesake in it. I have to be excited about it.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I'm contractually required. I signed it when I was born.
Does it have your namesake in it?
We're not sure yet.
Does your namesake put on battle armor and swing a sword? No, she does not.
Well, not in the book.
No, and that's the only place where she exists is in the book. She doesn't do that in the book. Is she involved in any of the major events in the time period covered by the show? No, she's not. No, she's not.
No.
So where do you go? Where do you go from there? I said this two years ago when Amazon announced this. I thought, well, this series, if you're going to spend this much money, $1 billion, then you are making this series for the general public, not for fans, not only for fans. You want the fans' approval, but you're making this for the general public that flocked to see Lord of the Rings. How on earth are you going to do that when you don't have wizards and you don't have hobbits? How are you going to do that?
You make the Belgariad instead.
You make the Belgariad instead, yes. Introduce people to a new world. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark Richardson wants to see a Xena movie. That would be awesome.
Am I the only person in the world who liked the movie Kroll?
No, look. Brandy enjoyed
the
it.
only person in the movie who liked the movie. But you don't remember the J. Momoa Conan movie. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, you watched it with me.
Jason Momoa, don't do it for me. I'm sorry.
Brandy and Becky have a sisterhood going. They love Legend. They talk about Legend for hours on end. And now we're going to probably hear about Kroll.
Damn Skippy.
The best way to really maximize, to really monetize a Xena movie would be if it starred Gina Carano, because she's already the goddess of all of these neck-bearded commentariat guys. They think she's the greatest thing since sliced cheese because she got fired from Disney Star Wars for not being PC. So they all love her. Imagine making her.
She did.
Xena.
She did. That's right.
She's 5'4", and who can beat Lucy Lawless as Xena? Who can do that?
I'm just not sure it's possible.
Yeah, Gina Carano. I remember Gina Carano when she first came on the scene as an MMA fighter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember when she first came on the scene. 'Cause I had a friend at work who was big into that stuff, and he had the biggest crush on Gina Carano. But
I encountered her for the first time the way I think a lot of people did in the Deadpool movie, where she's Angel Dust. She's the villain Angel Dust.
Yeah.
And does a wonderful job.
Really?
Does a wonderful job in that movie.
Oh.
Yeah, and the people who
you haven't seen that movie. You haven't seen that movie either.
I have seen that movie.
You've watched Crawl a million times, but okay. So you've seen that movie.
Yes, I've seen it, and I even remember it.
She's in cinematic history because of that movie. She is the only character in any movie who ever punched an X-Men exactly in that spot. that move has only been done once.
Well, if anybody deserves it, Deadpool does.
I'm trying to remember the name of Lucy Lawless's new show. It's absolutely fantastic. I had a screener for 2 episodes and just loved it. Where she plays, she's plain clothes. Time has not stood still for her. She's older, but she totally commands the screen. Just totally. I don't remember the name of it. It has a very boring name. But the first 2 episodes were great. Just great.
Becky's looking it up. She's going to see what it's called because I'm not sure.
My Life is Murder?
Yeah.
Is it? My Life is Murder? Okay.
I was going to look it up myself, but I'm still fighting with hidden gems. In their frequently asked questions section, I fired off an all caps email saying, "Do you have any idea who I am?" Hoping that gets a good response.
They might be impressed. You never know. This looks like a cozy mystery test.
It is, but it has an edge to it.
There.
It's a cozy mystery, but it has an edge to it. And most of the edge is brought by her. She's a totally 3-dimensional, believable character. When she's on screen, you believe there's nothing she can't handle, which is the screen persona that she projects all the time. So
I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah, we will watch that for sure.
Yeah, tell you what, send me that Kindle, and I will set it up for you, and then I'll send it back to you.
Not falling for that again.
I sound like the Grinch from the cartoon. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here.
Yeah, Becky has that memorized too, don't you?
I do. That and the night before Christmas.
Oh, who doesn't have the Grinch memorized? Good Lord, it's one of the greatest cartoons in the history of the world.
Yeah, I agree. Not Jim Carrey movie. Just
I like both. Sue me. I'm easy to please. We've already established this.
What happened to your audio?
Did it go bad?
It's gone all tinny.
Oh, it has to be internet issues. Has to be.
We live out in the middle. Well, my mother lives out in the middle of nowhere. We're taking care of her house. So
We thought we lived in the middle of nowhere, and we have to drive 15 miles farther in the middle of nowhere to get to our mom's house.
I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have thought it was possible for anything to make Becky sound more annoying. This managed to do it.
yeah, just wait until I've been up all night. Yeah, it'll happen.
I was up all night last night.
Me too. I was up all night reading. I didn't mean to. I meant to get some sleep, but I was up all night reading Pogo and having a blast.
Yeah, last night I read I Robot to Protect, which I'm most of the way finished with it. It's the Zucker Reichert book that is based on the Isaac Asimov I Robot world. Yeah, the Isaac Asimov robot world. And I think it's just fine. But of course, I'm a big, I mean, I was a psychology major, so that kind of helps when you got Susan Calvin, who's coming up as a psychologist.
So you're doing this for the Future History Project?
Yes.
But it can't. Your audio can't be the product of your internet. The visual would cut out before the audio would. The audio is low stress. It's got to be something with your microphone.
Does that mean it's your crappy phone?
It's not my phone. It's your phone interfering.
Crappy phone. Oh, is this how you feel all the time?
Well, maybe we should use it as a sign to wrap things up. Right? We're going for 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's not just that your audio is tinnier; it's lower as well. Probably people are having trouble hearing you.
Okay.
It's about that time anyway. We've been out for an hour and a half, and Link is going to start chewing kneecaps off if I don't feed him.
Yeah, it's time for Link to eat. So we'll get out of here. Thank you, Steve.
It's my pleasure. Let's do this all the time.
Yeah, I love this.
and the costing the comment section for free tech.
Yeah.
I don't think I got any takers. I'm hoping that Angie Jones sees the error of her selfish ways, but she might not. I'll just have to content myself. The one thing that I got out of this whole discussion is Scott's unconditional agreement to send me his Kindle. That's not much. I was hoping for a lot more than that. But maybe next time. Or maybe I'm going to try a live stream of my own tomorrow. Maybe then. I don't know how that will go.
Okay.
Time to pry it out of his cold, dead fingers.
Yeah, I'm nicer than you.
You're the good cop, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for joining us, Steve. This was so much fun.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for coming by.
Yeah, so long, everybody. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
All right, have a good evening, everybody. I'm going to end this now. Good night.